In case you missed it, Alabama played Texas, and it happened to be doing somewhat close. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So in this video, yes, we're having a little bit of discussion. There is no script. Believe it or not, you know me, Mr. Script. None. No script here. It's just talking football, talking traumatizing times, if you will, depending on how you look at it, after the number one Alabama versus Texas game. Dylan, first of all, very important question. Was it a safety? Was Bryce Young down?
Well, this is weird, Devin, because normally you send me a script before our videos, so I don't really know what I'm supposed to say here. But, but I'm gonna go with intentional grounding.
Intentional grounding. Okay. And
Intentional grounding.
all jokes aside, I do not send Dylan scripts. He picks wrong videos on his own. I can't take credit for his losses, Dylan, but okay. Intentional grounding. Yeah, there was, I believe it was Jahmyr Gibbs for Alabama at running back, Dylan, was near Young, but it didn't
He
even look.
was.
But it didn't look like Young was even pointed in his direction. I mean, albeit he was being flipped by about two Longhorns there, and also the what was it, roughing the pass or targeting? I do not know
Yeah.
what that was all about.
Well, that was just a phantom call. I think they thought he got kicked in the head or something.
Yeah,
I don't really know what they were looking at. Plus, like, I think the rule book just really screwed Texas there because it's Bryce Young. Obviously, I don't even know who he was throwing to, like the closest fan or the reporter on the sideline, because that ball went like completely horizontal. And him and Jahmyr Gibbs was about yay north, So
yeah,
I don't agree with much of what was going on there, but it was good to see that they got it right in the sense of there was no pass interference, and what was the other targeting? And there was no
targeting. They
targeting.
they waived
They got
targeting,
that right.
but then
There still should have been a safety.
the ref also said, what
Yeah.
was it? You probably remember better, but it was like the referee explained the penalty to me wrong.
It was explained wrong to them.
Yeah, and I was like,
So now it's like, what is New York telling people what calls to make during games?
and I don't
I mean, if you're a
remember.
conspiracy theorist, Devin, that you could have a field day with this one. But
Yeah, and I don't remember there ever being a whistle to signal it down. The place just seemed to end. I don't know, because
yeah,
if it was whistled down, then they probably could have reviewed it or something. But there was really nothing there. I mean, yet again, not a college football rules expert, so I might just be BSing there. But it was just an odd play. It didn't seem like there was ever an end, and then yeah, they couldn't review the intentional grounding or anything, and there's a couple of weird stuff. But anyway, the press box still was having a fun one with that. We were all very confused as to what was being called. Obviously, when
yeah.
we're communicating to the fans what's going on, we want to be accurate, and we did not really get an explanation, so we're all like, oh, okay,
Well,
yeah.
and as someone watching it on TV, so I was getting the old Klatt and Gus Johnson experience in my ear. Gus was going nuts, and Klatt was just like, "Oh, these refs are trying their best.
I don't, yeah.
Let's not be yelling at them too much. It's a hard job. It's just like,
That
what's
is
happening
that
right
is
now?"
typical. Yeah, Klatt for
Yeah,
president. He's very presidential. Gus, he speaks his mind, and we love him for it. But yeah,
all-time Mike Pereira too appearance as well. He
all
had no
time.
idea. Yeah,
Okay,
all time.
And Mike is Mr. Referee 101.
Yeah.
If the referee is at fault, Mike usually saves the day for them, makes them look good. So, yeah. And how did you feel? I know the major storyline, other than Texas keeping it close, was Quinn Ewers getting injured. Before he was getting injured, how did you feel about him so far? In my opinion, I mean, he was making some throws that you don't see college guys making at all. What impressed me the most, Dylan, which people weren't talking about, my friend CJ Vogel tweeted a video, was his pocket awareness and just movement overall. A lot of people watching, highlight tape or something like to complain about footwork, but yet again, not a quarterback guru in terms of footwork, Dylan. You know that about me. But it seemed like he was much more nimble. There was a play where Alabama's rushing right up the middle on Ewers. He kind of was backpedaling a little bit, but then he was sidestepping to the side, to the left, just very gracefully. It was almost like someone's controlling a Madden quarterback, and then was under pressure and flicked a pass. I don't know who it was, but it was to someone about 20 yards downfield coming across the middle, and it was a completion. Like that play, in my opinion, that's what top quarterbacks in college need to make happen, and he did. And then, of course, Dylan, you can maybe talk about it a little bit. The throw deep to Worthy that was just bobbled. It looked like it was going to be completed in the back of the end zone, and Worthy just couldn't come up with it. Now, obviously, a tough catch, but you still have to make it if you're trying to be the NFL, pick for Worthy. But yet again, he redeemed himself later in the game with a tough catch. But overall, Ewers, how are you feeling prior to the injury?
Well, with that Worthy one, I mean, that's a tough one to make, but it's definitely one you're talking about you have to make if you're playing a team like Bama. But Devin, the thing that stood out to me was the confidence. Like that first few plays, I'm sure they might have been scripted in some way. And those just,
Oh,
I
for
believe
sure.
there was one to Javian Sanders on the outside that we mentioned off air on. There might have been one to Whittington or Worthy, but there was
Mhm.
just short routes, getting the ball to Bijan, maybe on a little screen action, Roshan as well. And then they just started to uncork. And you really just saw how Ewers was like just comfortable slinging the rock wherever he really wanted to and fitting it into tight windows as well. I mean, that throw to Worthy was an absolute dime, as well as the second one to him too when he was getting his face mask pulled. I mean, Ewers did not care who he was against. I don't know if that just comes from Ohio State playing against such top-rated DBs during practice, so you're kind
Okay,
of just
yeah.
like,
I
this
was
is the
like,
same
where are you
thing as
going with
like,
that? Yeah, yeah.
no, I mean, you get what I
Yeah.
mean
No,
though. I
yeah,
mean,
but
practice does make perfect, and so
when you're playing
that
five stars,
confidence has
yeah.
to come from somewhere. And to take like his first or second game, but like first game against top tier competition and move the ball like that to where it's like after the game you're almost like, man, if you were in that, Alabama's got to make even more key plays to win that game, or Texas could possibly win that. I'm not saying I don't want to go hypothetical,
No,
but
but you're right. You're right.
yeah,
And like you were talking about the game plan, like Sark and I believe even before the game actually happened, I believe he told us that he was waiting, not waiting, he was having the game plan already 3 months prior to this game. Like it was ready and set. And as you said, it wasn't conservative at the start. We were talking, like you said, off air, that it was some of the even small plays were just kind of chess moves, trying to get the Alabama defense off their game a little bit. Dylan mentioned the Jatavian Sanders screen pass. We were talking about that was basically used to keep Will Anderson on his toes from, I don't know if it was the first
that
play on
Will Anderson
offense.
game, by the way, we were talking about off days that needed to happen. That was
Yeah.
a guy that you needed a bad day from, and that
But
heat was going straight to his head for most of that game.
yeah, but as you said, most of the game, he did have one big play. It didn't hurt Texas too much, but in the end, I mean, if they picked up a first down, I'm referring to the fourth quarter. I believe it was Anderson. Don't you correct me if I'm wrong. On
It was,
a read play by Card, he kept it, got sacked if you want to consider it a sack, and set up a long field goal for Burt Auburn. But if not, if they were able to pick up a first down, maybe they're able to run out the clock a little bit. So big play for Anderson. And then yeah, as you were talking about Ewers, I mean his third technical appearance in a football game ever. His first one was two handoffs for Ohio State, and then the season opener this year for Texas. I mean, he looked a little uncomfortable that first drive, just getting used to the game speed. But it's like you said, against Alabama, it seemed like he had all the confidence in the world and was ready to spin the rock. But Dylan, I know we're talking a lot about offense. We might get back to it in a little bit. But what do you think about that defense? For me, I don't know. It was like a kid in the candy store for me, finally seeing a Texas team that I'm not going to say has lacked heart, but like you could see the heart and the hustle just in the game, forgetting all the game plan and play calls and everything. People were running to the football. I mean, I was seeing, let me think of the names. I mean, Ryan Watts was making plays at the line of scrimmage. I know he had one where, ultimately ends up hurting the Longhorns with Bryce Young escaping, but in the end, the game did not come down to just that play. Obviously, that would have helped. But he had other guys. Anthony Cook, that's the name I was thinking of. Anthony Cook, defensive back, he at least made two plays behind the line of scrimmage. And, you don't see Texas secondary doing that, at least in the past. I don't want to say 10 years because there's been some guys, but at least the past 5 years or so, it's been a lot of missed tackles. There's been some that have hurt Texas. I mean, Jace McClellan doing I bet that made you feel a little old. It made me feel like a grandpa over here for a 81-yard touchdown run. I was like, dang, I covered that kid, seemingly as a freshman or sophomore in high school. And now he's out here killing Texas. I knew it was going to come back to haunt us, Dylan, at some point. But overall, how do you feel about that defense? The defensive front, is getting smack talked for their lack of performance last year, and they ended up really carrying this defensive unit too. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that first quarter was weird. There was definitely Alabama was able to move the ball, but later on in the game, after that Chase McClellan run that you talked about, there wasn't much for Bama. Like Texas was clogging those holes, other than the one where they squirted out and I think Jameer Gibbs as well in a little screen action got 30 to 40 yards. But other than that, the pressure was there for Texas. This is an Alabama offensive line that we've know has been inconsistent in the past and was part of the game plan where you need to get to Bryce Young, make him a little flustered. Obviously, there's only so much you can do against a Heisman player like him and talent-wise. Not so much you can do. Like when he scrambled, there's really no
Yeah,
win
I
there.
mean he's the Heisman winner for a reason. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he scrambles, you're losing. He's in the pocket. He's got good pocket presence as well. But they were just able to get to him a few times where it was like, all right, he's missing a few throws. Some receivers dropping the ball, as well as those Alabama receivers. They weren't really terrifying in that game, Devin. I think Georgia transfer Burton, he didn't play the greatest game that we've seen. They really did miss some of the key guys that they lost, Mechie and Jamison Williams, to the draft in that game, and really just showed that there is some weaknesses to that Alabama team, but as well as Texas is actually making use of those disadvantages that Alabama has. There's some openings in their offensive line as well as on their offense, and Texas played it relatively well for their standards. As well as I did not expect that at all. I mean,
no,
we're
no,
talking
no.
about Texas last year. That was a whole different team. Everything about that team was not something that you'd expect. So I think that's a huge thing for Texas. It really just set the tone for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and obviously in our prediction, we both picked Alabama, and we picked it by a pretty wide margin. I think we gave Texas a little more credit than the line was. I could be wrong. I'd have to rewatch, but we were not picking a close game, and then Texas came out and was balling, as you said. And your boy Dylan, I got to shout out your boy Tavondre Sweat out there. A lot of people are saying he's looking like an NFL player once again. Moro Ojimo was out there also doing his thing. Byron Murphy was carrying the squad. That defensive front overall, but yet again, I gave credit where it was due. The secondaries did their thing too. I believe Jalen Ford also led the team in tackles with, I believe it was 10. I could be wrong there.
That one sack that he had where he just came flying out of nowhere.
Yeah,
that
right.
Was great too.
Right up the A gap, I think it was.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. But yeah, it's like it's been such a long time since you could. I don't want to say rely on a Texas defense because still going in. When I was working the Horn Sports Twitter account, I was alluding to the fact that Bryce Young was starting to look like Joe Burrow again. So you can't expect the defense to hold up. But I mean, they still throughout the game, low scoring match against the team that is number one in the country. Like you couldn't expect anything more from them. And I mean, they gave it their all. The offense in the end was the unit that let down the team. But yet again, letdown's maybe a little bit strong of a word. You're still going against the number one opponent in the country with your backup quarterback that was injured. And now we're going to get to that, Dylan. Hudson Card, do you love him or not? I mean, you got to love the guy. He's given it his all, one leg out there. He still rushed after the injury. He had this 20-yard, I think it was 20-yard rush to the right side on a scramble, kind of hopping out there. But we've covered him at Lake Travis. He had some speed on him. He's got some wheels. He might be humble and say otherwise, but yeah.
You could say he's faster than yours. I don't know.
I think he probably is.
Practice, but yeah, that athleticism is there. If there's one thing he's got on other quarterbacks in that group, is his athleticism, and he was utilizing that. But the only problem was that he did get a lower leg injury or lower body injury, Devin. So that was really going to hamper his best bet to beat that Alabama team. But again, they were talking about during the halftime show. This isn't just some 3-star scrub that Texas has locked up on their roster or no-star scrub. I mean, this is a 5-star guy. I believe he was top 5 in his recruitment class, Devin. Like, he's a good player. He's got talent. But, again, you just saw the difference between him and Ewers that game, Ewers' ability to throw that ball.
Yeah, I don't know if he's 5. I think some sites had him as 5. Some had him as like a high 4. But, yeah, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the country. As Dylan said, he wasn't. I mean, no disrespect to guys that are 3 stars. Obviously, you can look up the 24/7 Sports like historical 3-star guys, and you'll see plenty of big names. But yeah, as Dylan's saying, like he has plenty of potential. I mean, just last year, he was named the starter to open the season. Obviously, he had some tough breaks, some young quarterback moments. But I mean, if he's still playing now, I mean, for a couple of weeks, that is, with Ewers out, like this is the time for him to grow and prove what he's worth as a quarterback. But I mean, I was very proud of him, Dylan, going on my proud dad moment, hashtag Devon proud dad moment. He's out there against the number one team in the country, and he did not look shook. I mean, at the start when he was in, Sark seemed to have gotten a little bit conservative. I mean, you could argue that he was just trying to get him in some rhythm, and that might be the case, but you could tell the play calling changed. And at a certain point, I think Sark just said, we're against the number one team in the country, Dylan. If you want to win, you just can't play not to lose. You got to go for it. And once he started trusting Carr a little bit, the game plan seemed to be working out. And Bijan, I was critical of his running game because he did not get many yards. I'd have to look at the averages again, but I think he was around 3 yards per carry, Dylan, maybe even below that. He still had over 120, I believe, total yards, just thanks to his receiving game. He had one really nice catch, I believe, from Card. But overall, I mean, offensively, Card did his thing. The freshman offensive lineman held up against the some of the names we had mentioned. Dallas Turner at linebacker for Alabama didn't do too much. I mean, he had one play notably hurting our boy. They massacred my boy, Dylan, Quinn Ewers. But
I think so many bad memories from my childhood could pop up, but I think that just reminded me of 2009, and just things started flooding back. It was a tough one to watch.
what was funny too is it's already been mentioned on Twitter 100 million times, but the backup quarterback, obviously, for that championship game was Garrett Gilbert out of Lake Travis. In this game, the backup quarterback was Hudson Card out of Lake Travis. There's a lot of weird similarities there. Dale and I were both kind of tired of the comparisons to the championship prior to the game. I talked about in the preview, it was a little uncalled for. I mean, I get it's the last time they met, but definitely we're heading in different directions. But on Saturday, they were pretty much middle ground. But Dylan, is there any final thoughts, takeaways here?
It's just they were there. There's a few drives that need to be finished for Texas to win that game. Obviously, you don't want to give Bryce Young the ball back with about a minute left and a timeout. That's probably one of the worst situations. I don't know if you had the Aaron Rodgers meme.
Oh yeah. We were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely how it felt. Definitely shades of the Auburn game that we talked about in the pregame video that we did, where it's like if Bryce Young gets the ball, even if that offense is struggling, they have a chance no matter what, and that's what showed there. There's only so much a defense can do. Defense is always going to be on their heels. Offense has the advantage. So really came down to some drives that just didn't end the way Texas needed them to. They ended in field goals, a missed field goal, which ultimately would have been the game-winning point there to put
prior to half.
Above like 2 points. But the fight's there, Devon. If they can just hold on strong for 4 to 6 weeks till Ewers comes back, or until Hard gets healthy, because he did look
Card,
good.
yeah.
It could be a whole different season than we were thinking it would turn out to be.
In respect to Bert Auburn, the kicker, like you're talking about, and if we want to keep on listing, good and bad, Auburn, yes, he missed that kick. Some people think it might have been tipped. I couldn't really get a good look at it. I wouldn't be surprised. It wasn't too pretty, that kick before half. But I believe he went in and still made 4 out of 5 field goals. And, of course, the lengthy field goal, I think it was about 46 yards, Dylan, to put Texas up with just about a minute and a half left before, Bryce Young, the mean man, did his thing. But then Dylan, credit where credit is due. Daniel Trejo, machete kills out there. It was just dropping bombs from the punter position. He had one that kind of shanked, but after that, it wasn't shanked. It was just wasn't a great punt. But after that punt, he had a 60-yard booming punt where the Alabama return guy just turned his head and had to follow the ball backwards, because it was going over his head. And then the next punt, he had pinned Bama at the 1 on a ridiculous bounce. I was telling people to start printing out the jersey shirts, Dylan. I think I'd be first in line there. But overall, it's like, how can you not be romantic about college football, right, Dylan? This game was, even in a loss, it was beautiful. The culture is it back? We'll see. Dylan mentioned a lot of people were kind of banged up in this game. Card was the one we've mentioned, but Ewers, of course, at the start of the video, Deshaun Jameson had an injury. I believe there's one other, Bijan Robinson, has a shoulder injury. He should be okay, thankfully. But yeah, it was just a overall entertaining game. The team, you can't really put a complaint anywhere, which it's kind of hard to say in the loss that you can be so positive. But overall, we're just missing the fight, and we got a little bit of fight. So we'll see, Dylan. But more importantly, what did you guys think about the Bama-Texas game? What are your takeaways? How are you feeling? What's the temperature like in the room? let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.